Good morning. This is update for July 14, 2022, day 141 of the war, end of the date update. So as always, we're going to start with a general and strategic discussion, and then we're going to switch to walk through the front line. So today, Russian president signed a law that effectively starts war mobilization of the economy. What this law specifically means, it's actually very sort of like a soft phase of it. It's not as sort of hardcore. And what this means is that private companies will not be able to refuse contracts from the military, from the Russian military. So, which means like, okay, if military says, okay, you need to supply some kind of food or you need to supply uniform, you have to sort of agree to the contract and agree to the terms that Russian military sort of forces on you. This law also changes their work terms for the employees. So basically, employees may lose their vacation time. They may need to work at night. They may need to work at different shifts. So basically, it makes employees and workers fully available for the satisfaction of those military contracts. Why why I said it's sort of relatively soft, because it stops right before forcing conversion of their civilian sort of enterprises into producing some military goods specifically. So basically, essentially, those dual use, call it goods, that they will be produced by the sort of like civilian enterprises, but they will not be forced to convert into producing something truly military. So that's general economic news update about for Russia. Then there is more political update. Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs warned that West is teetering on the edge of direct military confrontation with Russia. This is actually second warning that they issued. We think it's just important to. This is apparent. This is very clear. It's important because this is second time that it's being mentioned. Then there is update, very short update on Lithuania and European Union and passage of the Russian goods to Kaliningrad region of Russia. So European Union agreed to allow passage of Russian goods with some few exceptions, but largely Russia sees as a problem more or less resolved. There is still strong opposition from actually Lithuania to this deal, basically, that was done between EU as a whole and Russia. So remains to be seen, but more likely than not that Lithuania will have to comply with the general agreement that was signed. Now let's move to the front line, and let's just discuss the general situation. We definitely see that Ukrainian attacks using HIMARS systems subsided significantly, if not completely stopped. So that we just want to make sure, we just want to kind of make a note of this, and then see how things gonna develop in the future, because then we can kind of understand what the facts of those attacks are, how durable they are, and so on. As mentioned before, we were somewhat skeptical about the durability of these attacks, which means that Russian army, Russian command will probably can bring new ammunition, and probably they will be a little bit more wiser about locating that ammunition. And there are still problems with attacks at the command posts, because Russian army is lacking in terms of communication equipment, so it's very hard to decentralize from that perspective. But ammunition depots certainly can be decentralized quite a bit. Now let's look at the front line, starting from the very north, and then we're going to go in a clockwise fashion. So the exchange of artillery fire continues along the border here in this region. Russian side claims that the Ukrainian side is using also some UAVs in attempts to attack some targets on the Russian side, but it's really small scale. Now let's move to the Kharkiv front line. Here everything is more or less quiet, just exchange of artillery fire, nothing really changing here at all. Now let's move a little bit more south to Izyum bridgehead. Here Russian attack was only spotted in one place from the village Kurulka. That's essentially it. This is sort of very, well, relatively new direction of attack. This area was quiet for a really long time. So this is apparently some change, because if you remember, it's always the attacks always happen here towards villages of Krasnopilya and Dolina, sometimes Bogorodechne, but this is sort of totally new. But it's again a small scale attack, just to keep the pressure on. Now let's move to North Donbass front line, and let's see what's going on there. Things here also more or less quiet. There was some attack, Russian attack to capture village Verkhnyokamensky, which failed. It wasn't really strong attack, just more again to put the pressure in general, but nothing really new there. Let's move a little bit south on the same front line. There was quite a bit of attacks here in this area where Ukrainian troops are sort of a little bit semi-encircled. They're not truly encircled, but the situation is dangerous. So Russian, specifically Wagner mercenaries, try attack essentially along the whole section of the front line. They were not successful. Now let's move south to see what's going on west of Donetsk. Things here are more or less quiet. The only area where there was Russian attack was here towards Avdiyivka, which is, as we discussed many times, the goal is to sort of encircle Avdiyivka or create enough painful situation for Ukrainian troops so they withdraw from Avdiyivka. So there was attack here in this area. Actually, Russian troops initially had success, but eventually Ukrainian troops managed to counterattack and put sort of front line back to their original form, shape. But again, it wasn't anything large by any means. Now let's move and let's see what's going on Zaporizhia front line. Here things totally static, just exchange of artillery fire, some airstrikes, but nothing really major going on here. Let's move finally to Kherson. Here things again the same, static, as similar to Zaporizhia, similar to Kharkiv, essentially no changes. Exchange of artillery fire, as we discussed, mentioned yesterday, we corrected the front line here around the Velyka Bridge. So essentially the river right now here is a dividing point, with exception of this area around Velyka Alexandrivka, where Russian troops effectively have a bridgehead here, and then they also maintain bridgehead around Snegurivka. That's it for today. Thanks for watching, and until tomorrow. Bye bye.